We are told the Bengals plan to use the dreaded franchise tag on T. Higgins. If that sounds like a doppelganger of a year ago, that is because that is exactly what happened last year. That would be the second straight offseason that the Cincinnati football team has used the franchise tag on T. Higgins. Now, the story says that the Higgins camp. Now, you know you're big when you have a camp. I don't have a camp. There's no camp. There's no Mallard camp. I don't have a camp. You know you're important when you have a camp. You've arrived if you have a camp. How many people are in a camp? Could you have like 2 people in a camp? Does it have to be 3? How many? 4? 5? How many people in a camp? I'd like to know. When does one become a camp? Because I don't have a camp. I'd like to have a camp, but I don't have a camp. How do you get a camp? How do people know when you have a camp? Do you announce you have a camp? Do you say, hey, I have a camp? Like, who determines the camp? And what if it's a fake camp? What happens then? I need answers. Anyway, so Higgins expects to be tagged, and that would mean that he would play yet again, in theory, in Cincinnati, and would not hit the free agent market. Now, the reason today is an important day. This is our Tuesday show. It's still late on the West Coast on Monday, but we live in the world of Tuesday because this is our Tuesday show. Woo! So the tag window officially opens. Is everyone ready? 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. Woo! Yeah! Woo! Man alive! Tag day. It's tag day, kids. It's tag. No one go to school. It's tag day. Now, that begins at 4 p.m. It'll last until March 4th. Wow, that's a big period of time. March 4th at 4 p.m. So you can do the math on that, but that's the period of time. So let us discuss the question. The Bengals planning to use the non-exclusive franchise tag on wide receiver T. Higgins for the second consecutive year. Can you decipher what this actually means? So I've got vegetables, Batman, and paradise. And we will combine all of these things together, and we'll take a dive off a boat is what we're going to do. So, I will solve the Rubik's Cube. I have all of the powers invested in me by the mighty powerful microphones of Fox Sports Radio. And I will use football jargon. I will keep it simple, stupid. I will relate to the common man. And here is the story on T. Higgins and the franchise tag with the Bengals. The Bengals are proudly accepting the yellow flag for delay of game. Delay of game in football jargon. A 5-yard penalty. Move the chains back. It is a procrastination situation for the Cincinnati football team. Now, what reports say that they want to extend T. Higgins. I'm sure they do. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And they would like to have him under contract long term. We are skeptics. I, much like the great state of Missouri, am a show-me state of mind. It is more likely than not that there are ulterior motives in play here, that the Bengals are doing what I did when I was a kid. My mom would yell at me to finish my food, and I would play with my vegetables. The Bengals are playing with their vegetables. They are more than content to go year to year to year to year with Higgins. And Cincinnati would love for a team like the Chargers or the Patriots to step in there and negotiate a long-term contract with T. Higgins and work out a trade. Now, they're not going to get 2 first-round picks for T. Higgins. The way this usually works in the past is you agree to a contract, or Higgins finds a team he wants to play for, and then they drop the tag, and then Higgins gets traded for less than 2 first-round picks, and there'll be some kind of compensation agreement. They'll work out some kind of goodie bag that will go to Cincinnati. Now, as for the play, you talk about hardship. I don't know about you, but, man, can we all say a prayer for T. Higgins? Because this now guarantees him, if this does happen the way it's said to happen, and his camp thinks it's going to happen, that means T. Higgins will make, at the very worst, $26.1 million in 2025 on the franchise tag. So he's buying eggs. He's buying the eggs, and he'll buy eggs for everybody. All right, now, to Minnesota we go. Home of an epic Maller meet and greet. A couple years back there. It was wonderful. The Mermaid. Met so many great supporters of the show that night. But we go to Minnesota. That's where star wide receiver Justin Jefferson is publicly recruiting a new teammate, which is not his teammate yet, but he is making the effort to acquire Browns defensive star Myles Garrett. Wants him to come to the Vikings. So how much juice does that have? How much juice does that have? So if you look at the glass of juice, the glass is empty. It is empty. And from the great Batman cartoons, the character known as the Joker, if you might remember that back in the day, the Joker would say something along the lines of zero, zip, zilch, nada. Yes, it is nothing more than wishful thinking by Justin Jefferson. The reason I bring this up is because I was contacted by more than one diehard Minnesota Viking fan saying, hey, you should talk about this tonight on the show. And clearly not paying attention. Every other time an athlete says I'm going to publicly recruit another athlete, and I roll my eyes in the back of my head. No different here. All Jefferson does is win some brownie points with the electorate in Minnesota. Good for him. Other than that, it is meaningless. I mean, I'm sure it's cool if you're Myles Garrett to get some kind of handwritten note, maybe a FaceTime call from Justin Jefferson, kissing your ass and saying how wonderful you are, and you feel the love and admiration, and that's great. Public displays of affection, wonderful, very flattering. It's very flattering. But there's this in-between bizarro world where some people are convinced that this stuff actually matters. I am not. Ultimately, it comes down to money. It's always about money. That's number one. Number two would be location. Some people actually say they want to win, but really just want to be closer to some relative or something like that. So there's other variables in play there. We know that. And why would you want to, if you're Myles Garrett, you got one spin of the wheel, one shot. Why would you pick the Minnesota Vikings? That's not the Vikings are bad. They're not bad. The Vikings are a playoff team. However, the Vikings also don't have a quarterback. They didn't have one last year. They won a bunch of games, but they were exposed when they played down the stretch against the Lions and then Rams in the playoffs. And now they're going to turn to another question mark. From Sam Darnold, they go to J.J. McCarthy, who did not play a down in what was supposed to be his rookie year. And he takes over center in Minnesota. So the great unknown. So if you're Myles Garrett, why would you sign up for that? The great unknown. You wouldn't. You'd go to the Lions or the Eagles or the Chiefs, maybe Buffalo, but who knows what Cleveland would and wouldn't do in terms of the trades. But all indications are also that the Cleveland Browns think that Myles Garrett is lying and they're going to call his bluff. The Cleveland Browns, there's some chatter. The streets are talking. The Browns seem to think that Myles Garrett is full of crap, much like the Cleveland Brown locker room, and that if they just throw money at him, he'll just shut up and agree to play in Cleveland for the rest of his career. That they'll offer him some monstrous amount of money, and then all of a sudden he'll say, well, I really want to go from Cleveland to Canton. And that's really what I want to do. Stay tuned. Developing hot, ... Now, last word. We go to New York, with Aaron Rodgers. Done with the Jets. Done with it. Well, speaking of the Jets, did you see that plane flip over in Toronto? How crazy was that? Man, that was nuts, that video. Wild. Anyway, so as far as the actual football Jets, which are not real Jets and cannot flip over, although they do fall on their face pretty much every single Sunday during the football season. So Aaron Rodgers, done with the Jets. They need a quarterback, and there is said to be, I love this, not a sleeper sell, a sleeper option for the Jets, and that is Justin Fields in free agency. So there's said to be mutual interest between both parties. So thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Would Justin Fields makes sense for the Jets suck Jets. So I'm going to go thumbs down on this. You're talking about a two-time loser. Now, that makes him the perfect Jet, some would say. But if you're trying to actually turn this thing around, I would run the other direction away from Justin Fields. He was a bust with the Bears, right? He sucked with the Bears. He was benched, the biggest crime of all in Pittsburgh, with a good team around him, a supposedly winning environment in Pittsburgh, and a better coaching staff with Mike Tomlin. And Justin Fields could not hold on to the starting job and was benched in favor of a second-rate turd like Russell Wilson. That is a referendum on Justin Fields, that Mike Tomlin thought so little of Justin Fields that he would rather play the rotting carcass of Russell Wilson than play Justin Fields down the stretch. And on cue, Russell Wilson collapsed, and still Mike Tomlin did not go back to Justin Fields in any meaningful way. That tells you all you need to know about Justin Fields. So why would you go down that road? It's a paradise. It's a fool's paradise, right? What's the old line go? You fool me once, and that's shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And fool me 3 times, shame on both of us. And that's the NFL in general. Fields has just not been very good, other than spot moments here and there. And he's been in the NFL for more than a minute now. He has. He's the hot girl at the bar that you keep buying drinks and she flirts with you and she teases you and then she leaves with somebody else. That's essentially what Fields is. Although I don't know if he leaves with anybody. He just kind of goes home by himself. At this point, Fields is a long shot. If you were betting money, if I gave you $1,000 of house money and I said, what is going to happen to Justin Fields the rest of the way? Is he going to be anything more than just a gadget guy? I would bet on gadget guy. My money would be on gadget guy. I'd go gadget guy. That would be my money. He's nothing more than a gadget guy. Like occasionally they'll put him out there, run around a little bit, and that's it. But not a full-time starter on a playoff team.